Hey everyone, and welcome to the lineup. Today is January the 19th, 2023. I'm Barry Stagner, and as you can see, my good friend Amir Tsarfati is here, and we are actually in Davao, Philippines, and looking forward to this Saturday teaching the book of Revelation in one day. So we need prayer. Last weekend it went fabulous. It was just a great day,
Yes.
and we made it through. It all worked. Everything was covered that was critical to be covered in Revelation. And now we're going to kind of trim it back so it all fits in one day. And just really looking forward to
Because last weekend it was Friday night and all day Saturday.
Right.
This time we don't have the luxury of having Friday night.
We've got 5 sessions
So
to
we
teach the
cram it
whole
all.
book. So
Correct.
looking forward to that. And then the next day we're going to be at Praise
Revival Center.
Praise Revival Center. And both Amir and I will be teaching there here in Davao. And looking forward to that. But we wanted to pause and maybe catch you up with some things going on, specifically in Israel. And, you know, as usual, or per usual, we cover a lot of things here on the lineup. But we're going to focus primarily on the nation of Israel and what's going on there. But the first thing I wanted to talk to Amir about is, you know, something we've been talking about here on the lineup, about the fact that, you know, with this new government, and we're hearing a lot of things about the extreme right and some of those who were elected to office and appointed to cabinet posts by Netanyahu have caused a lot of ire around the world and certainly in your country. But here this past week, there was a group of Democrat senators from the United States that came that said they're not going to meet with a couple of far-right individuals within Netanyahu's government. And there's been a lot of things kicking up some dust around the Temple Mount as well. And so maybe you can kind of talk to us a little bit about how significant this administration is.
Well, our new government is something that the people voted for in overwhelming majority, 64. And if you omit the Arab Muslim votes, I mean, it's versus 30 something. That's a big majority among the Jewish people. And definitely Israelis are not into the liberal progressive government that we had. Now, the media is for it. And therefore, the media is doing whatever it takes to make this new government look so bad. Let me tell you something. The same thing that they say now about Ben Gvir and Smotrich, they said about Bennett. But when Bennett moved to their side, suddenly he was a saint. When he was forming a government that will finally oust Netanyahu from the prime minister's office, then suddenly Bennett is a great guy, is a patriotic guy. All the bad things they said about him, all the bad things they said about his policies suddenly disappeared. So it's all about position. It's all about where the person is at the moment compares to what you want him to do. The media in Israel, like most of the world, is very liberal, very progressive. They want Palestinian state. They do not like Zionist idea of our rights over the land. They will fight more for the rights of the Palestinians than over the rights of the Jews here in the land. This is exactly what we see that the media is doing in other parts of the world. So I'm not surprised. But to be honest, nothing that this government is about to do is something that is so revolutionary. Think about it. This government, for example, Ben Gvir went up to the Temple Mount. Well, his predecessor did the same.
Right.
And the one before did the same. But because it's Ben Gvir, they made it look like he is about to set the whole region on fire. And by the way, his going up to the Temple Mount was to prove that Hamas is only talking in hot air. And sure enough, they did nothing. That's the first thing. The second thing is, one of the flagship policies of the new government is to change the judicial system in Israel that over the last 20 years swung all the way to be the fortress of the left liberals. Israel is the only country in the world where the judiciary branch is electing the judiciary branch. So what the new government is trying to do is taking things to the place where they were supposed to be originally, and that's that the legislative slash the legislative branch basically will be the one who is electing the judges, which is what you do in America.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they do in most of the world. Now they are portrayed. The left in Israel is so angry. Why? Because in the legislative branch, we have the majority. So
Right.
they know that they are going to lose their last stronghold. The last stronghold. Because today, after they lost the control in parliament and in government, the only thing that they're still holding on to is the judicial branch and the media. And if they lose the judicial branch, they're only left with media. So the media is now screaming as hard as they can that there is a coup in Israel, that there is some undermining of democratic ideas. All of that is okay. I'm not going to use that word, but it's baloney. Okay, baloney is the soft word for that.
Yeah, I get you.
You got me. So my point is this: in this new government, the only thing that is different is that the media is now screaming and trying to make it look so bad, whereas in reality, this is the will of the Israeli people. That's it.
Yeah.
And you know what the left is saying? Well, the majority is not right. We're right. The majority is not right.
Yeah.
And so, this is democracy. Democracy, it's the rule of the majority. We're not saying that we're destroying the minority, but it's the rule of the majority. When Lapid became prime minister and people ask him, why are you appointing only your own people? He says, well, this is what it means to govern. You appoint
right.
your people. And now when Netanyahu is appointing his, Lapid says, this is a revolution. This is a coup. This is whatever. It's all about position. And so I'm saying, the way things appear and sound is not the way things are. And I think that the Israeli government needs to have a better PR in to explain what they really do.
Yeah, looking at what's been going on in recent history, and all of these things have elements that lead to what's going to happen during the tribulation. But I was just thinking as you were talking, initially some years ago we had the right and we had the left. And then we had the far right and the far left. And then we had the far right, the moderate right, and the extreme right. And now we have the left, the far left, and the extreme left. And it seems as though this polarization is becoming more and more
Correct.
concrete, where when the opposite party gets in office, they are the enemy. They have to be destroyed, taken out in whatever means possible. And this is, something that is going to be the mentality during the tribulation. We talked a lot about that over this past week, especially in the Revealing Revelation conference last weekend. Just what is going to be going on at the basic human character level that causes, identity politics, and it doesn't matter who's actually right or who's telling the truth. It's who has the power. That's who makes and rearranges the rules. And we're seeing that happen in two countries that have really, I think, had a camaraderie and a like mind, and now they seem to be drifting apart. Where we've got Democrat senators going to Israel and saying, we don't want to meet with Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. We don't believe in their platform. Instead of, trying to find some type of common ground.
Absolutely.
Now it's us.
But you know why they're doing that? Because they're dancing to the rhythm of the media. They cannot disappoint the media.
Yeah.
They have to, cave into the media's demand. What if, God forbid, a Democrat would meet with Ben-Gvir and say, "Oh, he's not that bad." It's all the case of the media is gone. So this is basically what I believe is happening. Again, the Supreme Court will do whatever it takes to preserve power that is not theirs. And the Israeli government is moving forward towards a reform in the judicial branch that is scaring the liberal lefts because they're losing power. That's their only thing, their only power center that is still in their hands. And this is why, because they had it, they were able to prosecute Netanyahu, because there's nothing in that case. But as long as the police and the deep state knows that the judicial branch is in their pocket, they can proceed with all of these things.
Well, we live in a time of sore losers. It used to be,
correct.
We have to accept the will of the people. We have to go along with,
exactly.
There's a difference in the government, obviously, in Israel and the government in the United States. We are a constitutional republic, and that divides the country up into segments where every state has a voice, and more control is given actually to the states than to the federal government, where Israel is a textbook democracy, majority rules.
Absolutely.
And that's the way things work within a democracy. And here you have just an unwillingness to accept.
In the name of
anything.
democracy,
Exactly.
they say what you're doing is not democratic. And excuse me,
It's
you
exactly
lost
that.
the elections. You lost. The majority rules, and
Yeah,
the
that's
majority
right.
has the right to change
Yeah.
if it's not. So everybody's trying to paint things his way, but bottom line is the revolution and that has been done in the judicial branch has been done by the liberals in the last 20 years, and we're trying to undo it right now. It's
Yeah.
not like Israel never was where it wants to be now. It was until the liberals hijacked it.
Yeah.
And now we try to take the power back from them, and they don't like it.
Yeah. Amir, I ran across a story today, moving kind of over to the States for a second. It was in Texas, where in a specific town, there was a police department that was given a pizza night sponsored by a Christian organization. And the far left protested so loudly against this Christian organization donating to thank the police department that the police department returned the gift. Instead of being thankful that there's people within the community that say, we want to recognize those who are protecting us, it's, what, these who want to recognize those who are protecting us are the polar opposite of what we think and believe is right for the country. So you don't have any right to accept a gift from them. And it's just gotten so bizarre.
But it's funny,
and
it's
out of
the
hand.
same left that wants to defund the police, but it's also the same left that will call the police when something
That's
happens.
right. That's right. And have armed guards all around them as they travel.
Yes.
It's just hypocrisy.
No
just
wall,
beyond.
but around their houses there are walls.
That's right. That's right. But we're seeing a lot of things happening, in Israel today. And we were talking a little bit about this earlier today, and just the shift. And, when we're starting to hear the same kind of talk out of Netanyahu that we've always heard, that, hey, we don't care what the rest of the world thinks. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And if we have to act alone, we're going to act alone. And again, this type of, the world views this as some kind of cavalier attitude of saying, hey, we're going to protect our country. And all of a sudden, that's a negative. And we saw that with Trump, make America great again. What a horrible thing to say in the minds of some. Yeah. And, nationalism, which once was the heart and soul of every country around the world that had at least an element of freedom, is now something ugly and dirty, and it's repulsive to so many. And, I think that's part of why there's so much blowback with Netanyahu, because he wants Israel to be what he contributed a lot to make it. Yeah. And this, it's the eighth most power. We talked about this, I think, in a message last night. Little bitty Israel. And, we always talk about the fact that on a world map, the name of Israel has to be written out in the Mediterranean.
Exactly.
Because it's such a small country, 8,300 square miles, and yet it's the eighth most powerful country in the world.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, it's interesting that, for the longest time, Netanyahu has been trying to convince Europe and America that the Revolutionary Guards, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, which, by the way, people don't know, when Khomeini took over in February of 1979, he didn't trust that the police and the army of Iran will collaborate with him. He was always afraid that they are going to throw him out. So he created a proxy military force and police force, and that is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. These are an entity that is parallel to the Iranian military. Yeah. So the Netanyahu has been saying for the longest time, these are terrorists. They're funding terrorist organizations all around the world to be their proxies all around. And so finally, last night, the EU, the European Parliament, voted to bring the Iranian Revolutionary Guards into the list of terror organizations. It took them that many years to understand what this organization is all about. Too little, too late, I would say, because now Iran is out of control. Iran is bypassing all the sanctions and selling weapons to Russia. By the way, Biden, just upon his entrance to the White House, lifted sanctions from Iran especially when it comes to weapon export.
Right.
Now we see the results. You see what they're doing now. They are arming the Russians first with drones, now with some more rockets, and because the Russians ran out of rockets, they ran out of drones, and now the Russians in return are going to sell Iran Sukhoi 35 and helicopters, which are game changing. You see, for us, we are banking on a very old Air Force and Navy of Iran. And Russia is now replenishing everything for the Iranians with some very, very sophisticated weapons and war machines. So everything that is going on right now, much of it is to be blamed on this democratic administration that you have in America.
Right.
But also the ignorance and the gullible European Union, which now finally wakes up to understand that these are bloodthirsty ayatollahs, and the Iranian people. The Iranian people continue the protest, and no one talks about it, and no one is helping them, and no one is supporting them. And Robert Malley, the special envoy of your administration to Iran, continues to meet with the Iranian ambassadors. They continue to talk. Even today, right now, it came out that they're still talking.
Yeah. You made a comment earlier today that kind of struck me as we were talking a little bit about the amount of money that the U.S. has been sending to Ukraine in obviously a short span of time over basically the life of this Russian invasion into another country's sovereign territory. And you made a statement that really, as I said, just kind of struck me. I never looked at it that way, but maybe you can share what you told me.
Well, from what I know, so far, what America gave to Ukrainian aid, military aid, in 1 year, exceeds what America gave to Israel in 70 years.
Yeah, in their whole history.
Yes, and thankfully, we probably didn't need as much as Ukraine, but I'm just saying that the amount of aid and packages and spending on another country's defense and not on your own. By the way, you are emptying all of your emergency stockpiles. Right. The next thing now that we hear is that all of your emergency warehouses in Israel of the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army has bases and emergency warehouses loaded with shells and ammunition for the U.S. forces all across the Middle East, and parts is in Israel. And believe it or not, but the U.S. began to empty all of its mortar shells and other rockets from its emergency warehouses in Israel in order to send it to the Ukraine. And I'm saying that because we suddenly find ourselves in a situation where the Russians are looking at us as collaborators, because here we are allowing this to happen, although it has nothing to do with it. These are not our shells, and this is not our decision also. And it's interesting because Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, yesterday laid the guilt trip on the Jews by saying this: what NATO is doing to Russia now is the final solution, just like what the Nazis did to the Jews. He used the term final solution. So he's basically telling Israel, don't collaborate with the same atrocity that has been done to your people by the Nazis. And it's obviously everybody could read between the lines when he said those things.
Well, and we are doing what Iran does. We're fighting a proxy war. We're financing, the military capabilities of another nation to fight, what's long been America's enemy, even if only on paper or during the Cold War, and that is the Russians.
And that is exactly what the Russians are not winning right now. If you go to my Telegram channel, you can see I just posted the new weapon that they just received from you guys is now expanding the range of Ukrainian territory of Ukrainian ability to hit territory in Russia, in Crimea, and in the Donbass region. If they could earlier only hit 3% of Crimea, now it's 30%.
Yeah.
So that is exactly why the Russian
Stakes are getting higher.
Yeah, and the Russian president is not putting up with all of this. I also heard earlier today that some Russian soldiers are being smuggled into Belarus in cargo carts on trains, so they will not be seen. And so basically, there is a good chance that a new attack will actually be of Russian soldiers from Belarus, from the northwest as well. So, it's not over yet. Maybe it has just begun. I don't know.
A couple of things come to mind. One, I want to just mention because it popped in my head. When we are looking at the tribulation period and the things that are precursors to it, we know there's going to be a loss of natural love, or just a respect for life, and all those other things. We've been seeing that develop. But one of the things that's interesting about the four horsemen of the apocalypse and the second rider who takes peace from the earth, people under his rite of terror butcher each other. They're killing each other. And there was a story today that there was a Russian general, because they're having problems with defectors and everything else. People going AWOL because they don't believe in the cause. They don't see any reason for this, and they're being forced and taken, even basically drug out of their homes and put in a uniform and told to go fight. So a Russian general threw a grenade into a group of soldiers,
Yes.
killed 3 of them, and the caption said he did so in order to create loyalty. And that's a fear-based loyalty. That's not loyalty. That's not a commitment to a cause. That's fear that it's going to happen to you next. And what a butcher's mentality to take and use that as a motivating element to actually kill 3 of your own men, so everybody else will toe the line. And this is just a different mentality, even in the age of mechanized warfare and all the different agreements down through history, about fair fighting and all these other supposed rules of warfare. But it's just, this is barbaric for someone who has a high rank in their own military to do something.
Super barbaric. And we see that Putin is plotting on having another draft of soldiers very soon, which means he ran out of the cannon fodder, you say?
Fodder.
Cannon fodder from the last one.
Yeah.
And the loss of human. Look, I try not to post, all the butchery that is going on there, but I get daily videos and footage from the battlefields over there that are horrific. I mean, I've seen piles of dead bodies of both Ukrainian soldiers and Russian soldiers. And I also see, by the way, on both sides, when they capture someone alive, how they torture him. On video, by the way, to cause the fear, because they torture them on video and then they post it. And, I have a lot of sources, and so I get them unedited. I get them raw.
Yeah.
And it is terrible.
Atrocious. Yeah, Amir, the other thing that popped into my head a moment ago is, the current administration, the president of the United States served under a previous administration that had very strained relations with Israel.
Correct.
And so it's not unusual, I don't think, for us to kind of go back to that direction, because that was what he practiced under the previous president. And, here we had that 4-year respite. We had the U.S.-Israeli relationship at its zenith. It had never been better, and things moving in a positive direction under the former president. And now here we seem to be at breakneck speed, moving in the opposite direction. Whereas we mentioned, we got senators saying, I don't want to meet with members of your cabinet. And, basically the U.S. trying to play the bully and bully Israel into positions that the U.S. in their wokeness is trying to join with the rest of the world, all this egalitarian thinking and all. And, it's just a sad thing, I think, especially as an American, and to consider the fact that someday, Zechariah 12:3 says, all the nations of the world are going to be against Israel.
Exactly.
And to see us kind of move in that direction. And it's not that it's been overt, but it's definitely been covert. And there's a lot of messaging that comes through things like what we've been sending to Ukraine, and
it's
what
funny,
we've been sending
what
to
you send to the
Israel.
Ukraine is for money you don't have. I mean,
Exactly.
I
We're
just
borrowing
read
money.
I just read that you have reached. Tomorrow is the 19th. Is it today?
Today's the 19th.
Today's the 19th. You have just reached the ceiling of your debt.
Yeah.
Your debt ceiling. You cannot borrow more money. You cannot have higher debt than this. And in order to take more, you need to actually go to the legislator and change it, change the ceiling, which under this house, I'm not sure is going to be a successful move for Biden unless he makes his changes that they demand, which means quite a lot of chaos in the U.S. government in the next few weeks.
Well, we didn't see the red wave here that we many predicted and many hoped to see, but still, you've got the first step in getting something written into law or passed that's going to be a bottleneck for basically everything this Democratic legislation tries to move forward, or administration tries to move forward. And so, you've got that proverbial lame duck administration now that's going to have a hard time getting anything off the ground. And of course, the Democrats are going to fight tooth and nail to keep the Republicans from advancing anything that's according to their view of where the country ought to be going. And again, it just speaks of that whole polarization, which is one of the things that the Bible has predicted, that it's just, it's us and it's them. It's the God lovers and it's the God haters. And really, that's where we're seeing things headed right now.
And the level of trust of people in governments is going to sink. And this is the best platform for looking for some new form of government that is not national necessarily. It will be, I guess the world will be redivided to kingdoms and appoint kings over them, and of course, eventually the Antichrist.
Yeah, and we're seeing so many precursors to what's going to happen, and looking at some of the things we've been talking about, not just on this tour, but in previous conferences we've done together, just seeing that we're seeing the building blocks for so many things that will take place during the tribulation, but they're being established now.
Correct.
The mentalities are being established now. Some of the practices are being established now. And, I think one of the takeaways from each of the things we've done, and by the way, we've seen numerous people, and I mean hundreds of people, commit their lives to Christ on this tour together. And it's just been amazing. And I'm just so blessed by the invitation you gave last night and to see people respond. And to it's been made absolutely clear that you have to be born again.
Absolutely.
And it's not,
especially in a country where 90% are Catholics and they believe this is Christianity.
Right.
And so we read together yesterday that Jesus said to Nicodemus in John 3, no one can see the kingdom unless you're born again. It's not a menu, born again, Catholic, what are you exactly? Choose what you want to be. No, you cannot be but born again. That's the only Christianity that exists according to the Bible.
Yeah.
So we made it very clear yesterday.
And I think what's been communicated, and I think what is one of the great values of taking this hard but fast look at the book of Revelation, is that it really separates the wheat and the chaff of those who are in the room. And those who are marginal or church people and maybe haven't made that commitment, see what's coming. And it's kind of like Jude said, some you got to save by pulling them out of the fire. And if there's an element of the judicial nature of God and the fear of not wanting to go through those things that pushes you to Jesus, and then so be it. And I think just looking at these heavy topics that we've been talking about, it just is something that I encourage people not to shy away from frequently, and that is, the judgment of God is real, and He's coming, and we're seeing all these things that we talk about, and all the news stories and the multitude of things that you're covering on Telegram. They're all pointing to the same thing, and that's Jesus is coming. There's going to be a tribulation after that. He's coming again with His church, and then we go into the millennial reign of Christ on earth, and after that, eternal destinies are solidified. And they can't be changed.
Yep, I agree. And but the good thing is that it's a fertile ground here.
Yeah.
And we sure hope that also online across the globe. Same thing.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for this week. We've got a bit of an abbreviated session, and also, apologies for we have the laptop setting on a bed, and we're sitting on a couch across from it, and so we're a little bit cockeyed, and but we're really not. It's just
Okay.
But anyway, apologies for the quality of the.
I wish
the
we could
picture
show
and all.
you that the lighting device is sitting on three pillows,
3 pillows.
on bed,
Uh,
and the sofa is right here, and we couldn't find a better way to. But this is the fun part of traveling
Yeah.
and doing these
you
things.
got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
But thanks for joining us.
Thank
and you
you.
know what? Make sure you follow Amir on Telegram. He's got information coming at you all day, every day. And hey, again, now that I'm sitting here with the other author of Bible Prophecy, The Essentials, just from both of us, thank you.
Yes.
For those who purchased and pre-ordered the book. And as we mentioned, if you've been looking on any of our social media platforms, Publishers Weekly ranked this book as number 9. So it made a national bestsellers list and one of the top 2 national bestseller lists. So we're very grateful for that. Yep. And you know what? If you bought the book and you've read it, go and give a review on Amazon, because all this stuff helps get the word out. And one of the things, Amir, I think there's like 100 comments so far, 100 reviews so far. And one of the comments I've been consistently seeing is this answered a lot of questions I had. This helped me because I never understood that. Or this was something that was just a total conundrum to me. I didn't get it. And this book has been so helpful. And that's the whole point of writing the book, is because they are the questions you all have asked. And so just thanks again for jumping in. And don't forget, when next week and in Anaheim, California, it's hosted by Calvary Chapel Tustin, but it's our 8th annual Proximity Prophecy Conference. And Amir's coming back to the States, and he'll be joining us, Pastor Mike Olay, the operations manager from Behold Israel, one of the funniest people I know, and a great Bible teacher. He's going to be teaching as well. And then Jan Markell is going to be joining us via video from Minneapolis, and we're going to be doing kind of a special session, like an update, much like we do here, and Amir's updates that he does as well. Yeah. And then we'll finish off with Jan joining us for a live Q&A session. So that's next Saturday, or a week from Saturday, January 28th. If you're here in Southern California or in driving distance, it'll be held at Calvary Chapel East Anaheim. It is a Calvary Chapel Tustin event. And if you'd like to register and join us in person, just go to cctustin.org. And there's a place for you to click on, and it'll take you to the registration page. So otherwise, you can join us online. It'll be streamed through Behold Israel. It'll be streamed through Calvary Chapel Tustin, both of our personal Facebook and YouTube pages and channels, as well as Calvary Chapel East Anaheim live streaming. So lots of opportunities for you to join us, and I hope you do. I think it's going to be a very important day as we are getting closer and closer and closer to that moment and twinkling of an eye. When we're going to be out of here and forever be with the Lord. So, Amir, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Pastor Barry.
Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your ministry, and just look forward to what's going to happen in the future. So, with that said, that's all for today. And as we close every week, we'll see you here, there, or in the air. God bless you.